Breaking news. Putin insists Russia is not opposed to meeting with Ukraine. After meeting with African leaders on Friday in St. Petersburg, he held a press conference and announced that he had returned to Moscow with their requests for Moscow to move forward with their plan. Ukrainian attacks make it difficult to realize, but Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Saturday that an African initiative could be a basis for peace in Ukraine. After meeting with African leaders on Friday in St. Petersburg, he held a press conference and announced that he had returned to Moscow with their requests for Moscow to move forward with their plan. It's true, he said, that some parts of the peace plan are already being carried out. To quote, "But there are things that are difficult or impossible to implement." In June, Reuters reported that Africa could mediate the conflict by taking confidence-building measures, then negotiating a ceasefire with Russia and the West. Putin mentioned a ceasefire as one of the initiative's goals. However, the Ukrainian army is on the offensive, attacking, and implementing a massive strategic offensive operation. When we are under attack, we cannot stop firing. We did not reject them, he said of the offer of peace talks. There must be consensus from both parties before we can move forward with this. After 17 long months of fighting, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected the idea of a ceasefire that would leave Russia in control of nearly a fifth of his country and give its forces time to regroup. There is little certainty about the Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Despite Russia's recent aggressive history, few people expected all-out war to break out. Then, when it finally arrived, nobody saw Russia's initial misstep coming. To add insult to injury, no one saw coming a former TV comedian who rallied his outnumbered and under-equipped citizens to meet every bloody challenge and, incredulously, turn the tables on the invaders. Vladimir Putin's decision to back out of a Black Sea grain deal, which would have allowed Ukraine to export some of its estimated 40 million metric tons, MMT, of grain to feed the world's 600 million hungry, came as a surprise even to himself, given his track record. In order to make sure the rest of the world got his crazed message, he sent missiles to wipe out a large portion of Odessa's export infrastructure. But the end of Odessa shipments, as Black Sea grain trade veteran Andrei Sizov tweeted, are not a game-changer. Ukraine has access to alternative shipping routes for 40-plus MMT of grain. A Ukrainian Danube port, on the northwestern Black Sea coast was one of the other routes Sizov mentioned on July 21. Then, unexpectedly, Russian drones began attacking the port city of Reni as well. Because Romania, a NATO ally, is on the other side of the river from where the bombing took place on July 24, a military response from the US-led, 31-nation security group would have likely been necessary. The world's grain markets exploded when word spread of the drones, destruction, and export delays. Corn, soy complex, and wheat all rose and fell before rising again. Persistent drought in the Midwest's grain-growing regions fueled the movement in part. The majority, however, came as a result of Russian aggression against Ukrainian ports. Sizov countered that Russia has much to lose, too, if Ukraine continues to rise to the challenge, as it has for the past 17 months, and launches attacks on Russian shipping as retaliation. In order to pay for the war, Russia has almost 50 MMT of wheat to ship right now. It, too, is sitting around hoping to hitch a ride with some Ukrainian grain. A rise in attacks on Russian shipping also threatens oil exports, a major source of revenue for the country. According to estimates, roughly 43% of all Russian oil exports pass through the Black Sea, most commonly on tankers flying the Greek flag. No one wants to think about the economic, political, and military consequences of any action taken in that sphere. European Union agriculture ministers convened 5 days after the initial Putin action to formulate a strategy for rerouting the avalanche of Ukrainian grain through EU member states that share borders, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia, and into key markets in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. It's not a brand new concept. In fact, it was used to export some of Ukraine's harvest in 2022. In fact, on June 5 of this year, the European Commission, the organization responsible for EU trade policy, announced that it would be extending its current rule that allows the 5 border nations to restrict Ukrainian grain flowing through their nations. Additionally, the same 5 countries were given permission by the Commission to outright ban sales of Ukrainian wheat, corn, rapeseed, and sunflower seeds. There will be no more boisterous unanimity in response to a New Deal, only quiet derision. According to a July 25 ABC News report, local farmers have expressed anger toward the road and rail routes through neighboring countries because of the glut of Ukrainian grain, which has driven down prices and hurt their livelihoods. The situation isn't much better for Ukrainian farmers. Lower farm prices and fewer profits for an already weary group due to shipping delays and higher transportation costs. Meanwhile, Russia, unsurprisingly, keeps upping the ante. A Russian spokesman gave the green light after European Union agriculture ministers suggested Lithuanian Baltic ports as an alternative route for Ukrainian grain exports. A word of warning, he continued. We will continue to counter that. A definition, please. Even if Vlad the Invader has no idea, the threat to commodity markets around the world is far from over.